Hey, this is Alex Lindsay sitting in for Leo Laporte, and we're here with Andy Ihnatko, Frederick Van Johnson, and Don McAllister. We're going to talk about new iPods. Are they coming possibly as early as next week? Apple's inevitable push towards Verizon, and of course, the old conversation, which is better, PCs or Macs? Coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 207 for August 10th, 2010. Sloppy seconds. This episode is brought to you by Go to Assist Express. If you're tired of traveling to fix tech support problems in person, resolve them quickly online with Go to Assist Express. For a free 30-day trial, go to gotoassist.com/MacBreak. And by Drobo, the original S, Pro, and new Elite, offering expandable storage products for individuals, small businesses, and creative teams. For more information and instant rebates, visit drobo.com/MacBreak. And by Gazelle, the easy way to sell or recycle the used gadgets lying around your home or office. Don't just sell it, Gazelle it. For a 5% bonus payment for your used gadgets, go to gazelle.com, bonus code MacBreak2. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to MacBreak Weekly. This is Alex Lindsay. I'm sitting in for Leo, and we've got a stellar cast. Here in the studio, we have the one, the only, Frederick Van Johnson.
Hello.
It's good to have you up here.
It's good to be up here.
Now that you're here.
Now that I'm here.
We were a little concerned about you.
I was, it took forever to get up here. You know, it was 90 minutes from San Jose.
That's not right. It's just
Isn't it a 3-hour drive?
For those of you listening, it's an hour and a half to San Francisco from San Jose, not an hour and a half from. So there was some serious math that Frederick was bending.
There was a black hole in there somewhere. I just went in it and came out. I was here.
Yeah, exactly. Coming in from Boston, we have Andy Ihnatko. Of course.
Hello.
Hey, and man, the camera gets better and better every week.
Well, I guess, I took that course in cinematography, like I was saying, so I know
Yes.
next week I'm going to be like this. I've been watching old episodes of the Tom Snyder Tomorrow Show,
Yes.
and I've decided that if I have like some black drape behind me and have a cigarette held like thusly, with like a little spot here just to catch the cigarette smoke, I think I will sound far more urbane, to the point, and intellectual than if I'm just standing here like this and just drinking a soda, not smoking at all. So it's an evolving process. We're getting more dollars in for the studio production,
Yes.
And we'll get some of that back into the pension fund as soon as possible. It was just a bookkeeping error.
Yeah, I really think looking at some good Boris Karloff would be really a great addition. I was watching a lot of it. Someone asked me to impersonate Boris Karloff for a voiceover last night.
Oh yeah,
and so I was watching lots of it on YouTube, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of good movies I haven't seen. So anyway, also coming in from across the pond, we have Don McAllister. Hey, Don, from Screencasts Online.
Hi, Alex. Hi, how's it going?
Good, and it's a late night for you, isn't it?
Oh, it's not too bad. It's sort of early evening. But and by the way, apologies for last week. I know I was supposed to be on last week, but circumstances were against me last week. But I'm glad I could make it this week anyway.
And we are too. And now, rumor has it that you have a special deal for people who are actually watching MacBreak Weekly, a special deal for Screencasts Online.
Yeah, it was actually one of the things I was going to bring up last week, and that made it all even more disappointing that I couldn't do it. But basically, I suddenly realized a couple of weeks ago that I'd never actually done a sort of special promotion. For people that don't know, I run Screencasts Online, which is a video tutorial site, and it's a membership scheme. I do sort of like one show every month, which is for free, but the other 3 shows every week, 3 shows, 1 every week, is for members. And it's $57 normally, but I decided to go mad and do a 50% discount for MacBreak Weekly viewers and listeners. So if anyone's interested in my stuff, I've got about 260 videos now on the site that you can sort of download immediately.
And it's a killer.
Yeah, it's well, I like to think so, and thank you for saying. But the basic screencasts, so they take you through all the different packages that come out, not just the Apple stuff, but also really good third-party stuff as well, and hardware devices, etc.
Now, what do they need again to take advantage of this offer?
Just go across to screencastonline.com/extra, which is the normal signing up page, and click on the link down at the bottom. And when you get to the payment processing bit, there's a coupon code, which is just MacBreak Weekly. That's 50% off.
MacBreak Weekly. So check that out. It's 50% off and definitely worth it. So check it out, Don McAllister from Screencast Online. And our first story of the day, and I don't know how big of a deal this is. This is Papermaster, Mark Papermaster, the Apple executive in charge of the hardware for the company's flagship iPhone. This is according to the New York Times, has left the company in the wake of the widely reported problems with the antenna recently introduced in the iPhone 4. So he, it seems like he left pretty abruptly after, they kind of sorted everything out and then he popped out. So, Frederick, was he pushed out or did he jump out the window?
I have no idea, but and we will never ever know.
When asked, he said, of course, no comment.
Right, yeah, of course. But I mean, who knows?
As someone who used to work at Cupertino
at levels much lower than the level that Mr. Papermaster was at.
much further from the sun.
Much further from the radiation of the sun, but from what I've read, all I know is what everybody else is reading, right? So from what I've read and extrapolating from my experiences at the company and with corporate America, or corporate companies in general, when something huge like that happens, maybe, stranger things have happened. Look at HP.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. It could be. When compared, it could be worse. Now, Andy, do you think this was really over the antenna? Do you think he had to take the sword, so to speak, for the antenna, or do you think this was more of an overall personality conflict?
Honestly, I kind of have two reactions to it. Number one being that Apple doesn't seem like the sort of company that would say one of your products is causing us a lot of grief, and so we need to make a ceremonial firing. And congratulations, you just screwed the short straw. You get one more trip to the Apple store to get those cool "I visited the mothership" T-shirts, and then you're out. That's just an offhand opinion, but I mean, I've read so much about this, and all of it is, well, I talked to this guy who thought, and this guy who didn't want to be named said his impression was, and he theorized that because this guy was hired during this time, and I've rarely, this is Apple trades, and people who follow Apple trade in so many different rumors because there's so many really interesting things happening in the pipeline at any given moment. And so we're no strangers to the idea of, well, we took this one grain of sand that we found inside this one carpet and CSI'd it into an entire case of proving one thing or another. I have rarely seen such a groundswell of totally unfounded guesswork and rumors masquerading as an actual issue or as an actual story. I mean, my opinion is that he took this job. For whatever reason, it didn't work out. Not a good story for him, not a good story for Apple. And I bet that as he's emptying out his office, the last thing he needs is other people taking guesses as to, well, I don't think there was chemistry between him and Steve Jobs. I mean, this is Apple. This isn't Jersey Shore, and we're better than the people who watch Jersey Shore. So let's just not even care about this because this does not affect our lives one single tiny bit.
And that's, of course, the last question I have for Don. Does this really matter? Does this affect us at all? Does it say anything about Apple?
Not really. I don't think so. And I have to agree with the other guys as well. The thing is, he's a relatively new hire. I think he only came in about 12 or 18 months ago. And it was quite controversial when he did come across because he was an ex-IBM guy. But I sort of was led to believe there was more on the processor design side rather than the antenna side. And I know, again, there's lots of speculation and rumor around the net. And I think I even read somewhere that he's actually called, or someone said that he was referred to as the antenna guy in Apple, which I find hard to believe. But I don't think it's really going to matter. I think it's just, as Andy said, it's just something that didn't work out. He's been there for such a short time that it's not as though really he's had a lot of time to make many mistakes. I wouldn't have thought, for that length of time. It's probably just something that didn't work out, and we'll move on.
And now that we are moving on, we have the big rumor, of course, this week. I think this is the big rumor. I know I'm excited. Is the iPod refresh coming next week? So this is citing a reliable source within Apple. Mac Magazine pegs the unveiling of the next generation iPod between August 14th and August 16th. Fairly tight window and coming up really close. Yeah. So this is next week, and this is the first 2 days where Saturday, Sunday, that's not going to happen. To me, it seems like the 17th is always the more likely date. And the reason, by the way, if you're listening, and those of us in the press will tell you that Tuesdays are good days to do things because you have the rest of the week to throw it, but you give everybody Monday to prepare. You don't want to make the press work on the weekend.
Right.
So Monday they can fly in, they can prepare their notes, they can get everything done, and then Tuesday you do whatever you're going to do. You'll notice that a lot of the Apple events are on, not all of them, but a lot of them are on Tuesdays. Fridays tend to be the worst day to do it, except for Mondays.
Yep.
And
Friday afternoon's bad.
Friday afternoon is like a disaster. So we have an announcement. So if you're going to plan an announcement, you're not reacting to something. And of course, if you want to say something and have it just be buried, you do it towards the end of the week, Thursday or Friday, which is what Apple did with the antenna. Exactly. Antenna. Yeah. So and we are going to lose $100 million, and that's usually on Friday at 6. And so anyway, this is a refresh that possibly is coming. I mean, I think we all knew it had to be refreshed after you see what's happened with the iPhone. Mm-hmm. What do we think is going to be, Andy? What do you think is the number one thing that we're going to see in this new version if it is released next week?
Definitely, I think we're all looking for an iPod Touch with a camera. Because there's too much evidence that this has been high on their priority list for a long time. And also now they have a technology for streaming video, an Apple technology for streaming video over Wi-Fi that does not necessarily require a 3G signal that could make the iPod Touch into yet more emphatically part of the iPhone line as opposed to the last gasp of the iPod line. So that's the only thing that I can really think of that we could really anticipate, apart from the usual speed boost and apart from the usual RAM boost.
So you get iOS 4, of course, on it. We get an A4
processor.
We get a new processor. We get a. Do we think a front-facing camera as well, Fred?
I definitely think it's going to have. Well, here I go saying definitely. Definitely. The rumors say that it will have a front-facing camera, but yeah, I think it's inevitable that it will have a camera in the front. Everybody's calling for that, and I think it makes sense, especially like Andy said with FaceTime out there and some of the other things that we're going to talk about later. It's you have to do it. What I'm wondering though is industrial design, because I care about that.
Don't we think it'll look a lot like the one
4?
we've seen? Yeah, a lot like
I'm
the 4.
hoping. Yeah, I'm hoping that that it looks like the 4. And who cares? The antenna won't matter.
That's what they're going to do with the old cases that they're scrapping with the newly designed antenna.
They got something to do with the old cases now.
Don, you were saying
there's one other thing as well that they'll probably include, and that's the gyroscope. Which really, when it first came out, I sort of scratched my head as to the use of the gyroscope, but seeing it being used in some games and the difference it makes in augmented reality as well, when there's some augmented reality apps, I would imagine that it's something that's more than likely going to be in the next iPod. But whether or not it's going to happen next week, I don't know. Do you really think that's going to happen? It seems awfully out of sequence, and it doesn't really give them much chance to actually promote it.
Well,
when I first heard about that, the first thing I did was to look at the editorial calendar for September to see if there was already another big announcements happening in September, not just with Apple, but maybe with some other company. And maybe Apple wanted to get either a leap start on what was being released then, or if they just wanted to put some air around their iPod announcements. I honestly have no idea whether this is happening or not. My guess would be no, only because Apple's never done it this early, but who knows?
Normally September is the window, so if they're gonna when they update it,
you get the hit from the back to school people. You also get the hit from the pre-holiday shopping people. Sure. The only advantage of doing it in August is that you could say the thing where, okay, well, Mom, Dad, you're already $24,800 in debt for this school semester. Let's round it up to an even $25,000 and buy the kid an iPod Touch as well.
Well, it seems like a great solution for many, and this is related to the next story that we have here, which is that Apple is adding email-based FaceTime into the beta 3 of iOS 4. So, and this is according to Mac Rumors. Apple's latest beta version of iOS 4.1, released earlier this week, has offered the strongest evidence that the company is going to roll out FaceTime video and functionality to other things, non-iPhone uses. This new option, the iOS Contacts application, allows users to make FaceTime calls using either the phone number or an email address. So, we're now starting to link people not just to their phone number. And this is something that I could see being more likely to buy my kids. I bought my kids iPhones. In some ways, I could see myself more likely to buy them an iTouch, or for younger kids where not really ready to give them a phone yet and have them run up that charge. But I want to be able to, a lot of times they're in a Wi-Fi enabled environment. We're moving towards this idea where 90% of our time, Fred.
Yeah, I mean, for me, again, putting on my Apple hat, not as an ex-Apple employee, but as just somebody who buys their products, I'm looking at this stuff and I'm thinking, we've been doing that for forever. I mean, we've had iChat, which is using email as the identifier forever, and we haven't seen a refresh of iChat in the last 100 years or so. So, maybe we're just looking at the next level of iChat with FaceTime incorporated. iChat already has FaceTime, right?
The other thing is that the thing that I noticed when I first did when I first did the face chat with you was that the sound is actually the same ringing sound as iChat.
Right. Yeah. So maybe we're looking at, I'm hypothesizing here, but maybe it's a refresh of iChat with FaceTime capabilities in it, and now iChat is everywhere.
Now, Don, do you think that that we are going to see an integration of FaceTime with iChat?
I think it's a given, really. I mean, not just for the Mac. I mean, I would love to see it come to the Mac because at the moment, you're severely limited with just iPhone 4 to iPhone 4 for FaceTime. And during the keynote at WWDC, Steve did say, there's going to be millions and millions of iOS 4 devices enabled for FaceTime. I don't think he said those exact words, but he sort of said it's not just he implied it wasn't just the iPhone. It's actually going to be rolled out to other iOS 4 devices, and of course that includes the iPad as well. Obviously not this particular release because there's no camera in it. But I could see it as part of their ongoing strategy that they would want to really enable FaceTime across all their devices, all their iOS 4 devices.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to admit that I'm amazed that we couldn't do FaceTime to the iChat immediately. That you couldn't do it. It seemed like it was just a natural because they already had all the systems in play. Andy, is there any reason why Apple would put that off?
The only thing I can think of is if they have any agreements with AT&T dating back to their first iPhone 1 agreement, saying that Apple agrees that they're not going to get into telephony over Wi-Fi in an official capacity until the agreement expires. But that's just a guess. It's also just as possible that they just simply weren't very interested in this sort of thing as a technology until now we get into the area where, gee, this is a banner feature of our hot new iPhone. Let's deploy it across the entire platform line like this. I agree with Don. I mean, the most alarming thing from the whole keynote was 10 million devices by the end of the year. That's very interesting. And of course, that was right while he was talking about that they were going to open the technology to anybody who wants to use it, which might have made other people think that, well, maybe he meant that Nokia is going to adopt it and Microsoft's going to adopt it and Android's going to adopt it. Whoever wants to put a FaceTime app on their phone is free to do so. But obviously, I think that it's more about an expansion into iChat. I think initially into the desktops and then onto other iOS devices.
Yeah. Now,
I mean, you could be cynical, Alex, though, to think, I'm not sure if Apple would actually do this, but, perhaps just restrict the FaceTime to the initial launch of the iPhone 4.
Right.
How many extra iPhone 4s did they actually sell because of FaceTime? Who might have just been buying one and then saw FaceTime and thought, right, I'll buy another one for the wife or I'll buy another one for my grandparents.
Well, I have to admit that that's been me. I mean, the whole thing is I'm waiting. You still can't get an iPhone easily, but I'm looking at getting ones for my kids, for my parents-in-law. Just one for the pair. But one for each of the kids.
Would you buy
iPhones? I'm buying them the whole iPhone. Well, if the iTouch comes out, I'm going to get them the iTouch.
Right.
Because the whole thing is that they don't need a new phone. They don't want a new phone. They're happy with their Verizon or whatever they have. So I don't really want to replace their phone. What I really want is just something that I can do FaceTime with that doesn't use a computer because it's, for my parents and for my parents-in-law, they just don't spend much time in front of the computer. But if they had a handheld way to do FaceTime, I think that is. I'm
looking at the iPod Touch, assuming that it's going to have all these features that we think it's going to have, like a FaceTime and the front-facing camera and all that. Frankly, I'm looking at it as the replacement for the landline in the house, so you have these things sort of in the house, in the living room, in the kitchen, whatever,
or Starbucks,
or wherever, and it just becomes, well, if I'm in Starbucks, I'm gonna have my iPhone with me, but the thing is that when you look at it though, Starbucks now it's all free, so the Wi-Fi is free. So the thing is that we could be you could theoretically be doing FaceTime from Starbucks. Of course, if everyone does FaceTime from Starbucks, then no one will. Now, incredible.
Now, Andy, do you think? Good catch. Yeah. So anyway, Andy, do you think this hurts AT&T? Is this, or does it help AT&T by taking some of the pressure?
Exactly. It definitely anything that takes them the load off the 3G network is going to be a positive thing for AT&T. The things that I'm sort of thinking of are what happens when if Apple were to say that FaceTime is one technology deployed over just about everything that they have, from your MacBook to your wife's iPhone 4 over at the office, who's responsible for connecting me here in the house to that iPhone over there when I'm initiating a call via FaceTime? Does it have to, if I initiate that via iChat, does it have to kick off as a phone call to that iPhone 4, or will it start off as over the 3G digital connection, where they'll get some sort of the app has a way of like receiving a ping from iChat saying, by the way, there's an incoming FaceTime call coming through, and that's all being done through the digital network? Or is it something where it's going to require cooperation from AT&T to make that final leap to the handset actually work? So. It seems like if you're connected via Wi-Fi, it seems like it would actually be able to do it, especially when you're looking at this identification between email or phone. By identifying them via email, we're basically saying we're going to reroute that, completely outside of the network. And right now, this is still all living inside the Wi-Fi world. Not again. And I have to admit, without unlimited bandwidth, you do not want to be having these calls. Yeah. Well, also, I think that is a consideration that Apple really thinks about. What is the FaceTime experience going to be like if you cannot count on being able to locate someone on an iPhone from your desktop version of iChat? And oftentimes, like, I will be in a place with Wi-Fi with my iPhone 4, but I don't turn on Discovery because it's just annoying to get all these pop-ups. We discovered Netgear. We discovered Netgear 2. We discovered Netgear 3. We'd like to join. We'd like to join Netgear 4. We'd like to join Perks Coffee House number 4, and you get annoyed. If there were a way to, it sort of raises the question of should there be a way to alert the iPhone 4 owner that, by the way, if someone wants to talk to you via FaceTime, it is your husband, someone you want to talk to. Do you want to basically tell them do you want to suspend the call for 20 seconds while you establish a Wi-Fi connection, or do you want to put it through over 3G? I know the 3G isn't enabled right now, but that's a consideration. Yeah, I think it's definitely a consideration. I think that right now my Skype, when running in the background, other than driving my battery into the ground, which is I think I've noticed that if I run Skype, I've gotten into the habit. Even when I try to quit it, it doesn't seem to have it doesn't seem to completely quit. It's still there. It's still there somewhere. Yeah. I've learned to, if I use Skype and I really want to keep my battery, I turn my phone off and back on again, because I'm just a little because it's been this issue where I've just noticed that my battery draws so quickly. But what I will say is, when it's running in the background, anywhere I'm on Wi-Fi, people are contacting me, which is part of why, they're finding me as long as I'm connected to Wi-Fi. And I think that there's a large number of Apple users. I'm not saying the general population, but there's a large number of people who use Apples that are probably spending 80, 90, maybe even 100% of their time connected to a Wi-Fi network of some kind. And I think that is the real, possible opportunity. Now, Don, I have a question for you. There's a rumor floating around about a 7-inch iPad. What do you think?
I think it's a bit too early. I think it's a bit too early, because they still can't shift the stuff off the shelf quickly enough as it is now. Or no, the other way around, they can't get enough stuff on the shelf to shift it. Although if you have a look at the video of the new store that's just been opened in the UK in Covent Garden, which I think is now the biggest Apple store in the world, they've got a room just for the iPad and a complete wall full of iPads. So if anyone's short of an iPad, they can get down to Covent Garden and pick one up fairly easily. But no, the 7-inch iPad, no, I still think it's a bit too close to the launch of the original iPad. I think that needs to bed in first. Do you think people? Here's the question: do you think people would be upset if we jumped into that? Yeah, possibly. But again, it's that weird form factor 7-inch. It's sort of a little bit too big for your pocket and not really big enough to do sort of the thing we've got used to on the iPad, having all that screen real estate to read and to do things like that. So I'm not sure where that actually fits in, whether or not 7-inch iPad would actually fit in. I'm interested to hear what the others think.
Andy, what do you think about a 7-inch iPad?
Rubbish. I don't see any reason for them to build it. And you start you start expanding the iPad line when you start to see a softening in the demand for your existing product. And like Don said, we're already in a situation where they can't build them fast enough. So why take $399 from people when you can take $499 and not cheese off the people who bought in early? January, I think then in January or early February, there's going to be a very interesting event from Apple as we find out what Apple wants to do for the second iPad. But I don't think we're going to see anything like a 7-inch iPad any time in the near future. I'm not even sure if we're going to see one next year. Apple has to wait and see. Apple has to see any sort of a demand from the public for a smaller iPad, and I don't think they're seeing it yet.
Frederick. Yeah. So now, here's the question: is if you had a 7-inch and you could charge, let's say, not $399 but $299 for it with a front-facing camera, so on and so forth, do you start to remove all the oxygen? Now you have almost $100 increments from $99 to $800. Where you're covering the entire market. There's a little bit of a gap right now between the iPhone and the iPad, and does the 7-inch fill that gap in a little bit?
Yeah, I think you're going back in time. Remember when Apple had too many products, and it was the case of, okay, we need to pare it down and to get back to the core competency of what the company was about. I think you would be going in that direction again in terms of just, it's too much stuff out there. Looking at my sample size of one, I love my iPod, love my iPhone, but, there are still instances where I struggle, why don't I just use my MacBook Pro? Why am I using the iPad? So, and I love the iPad. Like, I'm in bed with it, doing all my stuff, and it's great. But to add another device into the mix, I mean, for me, to have that constellation of having a fourth device in there, or fifth device if you count the iMac, doesn't make sense.
Well, I don't think it's a matter of
even other people though. I mean, if you look at it, if you look, you've got an iPhone, you have an iPhone 4 option. Presumably, you'll have pod that looks like an iPhone 4 option. Now, if you add in a 7-inch iPad and then the larger iPad in there, why not just go with one of the small thing or the big thing?
Well, but I can see my own self. I think it's more of a price issue of people who can't quite jump into $500, but want something bigger than the the iPhone or the iTouch. There's something, and there's a little bit of portability, and we Apple has had a history also, if we look into the history books, of trying to fill that line out so that there's an even gradient from the cheapest thing out there up through. I mean, I think that if we're
like Goldilocks, right? Small, bigger,
really true.
Right, biggest, yeah.
Well, with the iPods, they got to a point where it was $50 up to $350.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that was with the iPod. I think that was originally just to defend the iTunes store. They needed to have They needed to have a dirt cheap buy-in to play protected iTunes content. I prefer to look at how they're pricing the MacBooks, where the cheapest MacBook that they sell is $999 in a field compared to. Fighting against Windows notebooks, in which even if we leave out the netbooks, the cheapest are $500, $549, and for halfway decent notebooks. So I don't. They've never been in the cheapest price game, and now that Amazon has lowered the bar down to $139 for a book reader that actually also has an application development kit available for it, I'm not sure that Apple will be interested in getting into that game.
Yeah. Okay. And it's still too new. I mean, the iPad is it's still
absolutely
fresh. I mean, the box is still on the floor in my office, right?
People are still lined up with $500 in their hands. I don't think they're going to be. Apple's going to be.
Apple's usually very good at doing that, right? I mean, timing those things out to make sure that they maximize their returns before they move on to the next thing.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, just to speculate even further, the 7-inch iPad was sort of one of the rumors for the event next week, the proposed event next week, and bringing it forward, and that always leads to speculation of, well, are they making space for another product in their normal September-October slot when they would have launched a new version of the iPod? But again, it's still too soon for a 7-inch iPad, really. Even if they to go down that route. But we can always speculate on other devices that they might bring out in that time.
I was just thinking, I don't think there's going to be a 7-inch iPad, but maybe a 7-inch iPod Touch. Yeah. Now that has teeth. I'm joking.
What I want to see, I mean, I want some news on the data center is what I want, and I want
the secret data
center, and I want my iTunes in the cloud. I want everything to sync, and I don't have to worry about it. That would be news for me.
That enormous fiberglass fake volcano that goes over it, so the helicopter can just to that Steve Jobs Gulfstream can do a VTOL thing where it just sort of hovers and just sinks to below. And
Yeah, Thunderbirds are go.
I think that's where they keep the Apple Minions.
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
I want my iOS for Apple TV around about September, October time, in time for the holidays. That's what would do me.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
And linking nicely with the data center for streaming it. So.
And I just actually want an iTouch because it's not an iTouch. Of course, it's an iPod Touch. I keep on saying an iTouch, but iTouch makes way more sense.
No, it doesn't.
It's just easier to just say iTouch rather than iPod Touch.
iPod Touch. Yeah.
I know. Anyway, so we've got more coming up. Of course, Apple has bought the rights to unobtainium.
I love that name. That is
unobtainium.
I think that's the stuff that Green Lantern's ring is made out of.
Yeah, exactly. So we got that coming up. But before we get to that, I just want to go thank one of our sponsors, Go to Assist Express. So here's, we've heard of GoToMeeting and GoToSeminar, and a lot of us use that stuff. A lot of these tools have really revolutionized it. I was going to go to L.A. Next week. And I was gonna fly down, and and all the trouble and everything else. And we decided, we're just gonna do that online. We're just gonna have that conversation online because it just makes way more sense. Right. So this is an extension of that. Now this is Go to Assist, and so what this is really, if you're in IT or you're also a software consultant and you want to look for ways to to help your clients or help the people that are in your company without actually going to their desk or going. And we're not talking about just in the office. We're talking about nowadays these companies are all over the world, and so how do you support everyone from a more centralized area where you can have the best specialists dealing with the individual's need without having to have each one of them in every office? And so this is a great solution for it. Go to Assist. You can use this to grow your business. You can be in two places at one time. You can support customers quickly. Immediately. I had here's another example where I'm having some trouble installing some video software, and we the company that I'm working with in Germany, or in Austria, said, let's just jump online. So tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. I'm going to get up, and it's in their afternoon, and we're going to go back and forth on how to get the stuff all working. And it's just the way to make this work. And so with Go to Assist Express, of course, you can increase your revenue by handling more support requests if you're a consultant. You can reduce all your travel time, like I've been talking about. You can support clients even when they're not on their computers. This sets up, if you choose to, that you can install stuff, you can move stuff, you can take over the computer, you can do all of those things that are necessary to really solve these problems ongoingly. If you choose to, of course, there's all the security. You can decide whether you're going to do that or not. But it's a great solution there, and so definitely worth checking out. And of course, what you want to do if you want to find out more about this is go to gotoassist.com/MacBreak, and I actually think I even have a little thing here. Oops. I worked so hard to get it up there. There it is, right there. Go to assist.com/MacBreak, and so definitely check this out. This is the way of the future. I mean, it is not about. I mean, we're dealing with right now. We're building. You saw Jerome was here last week, and we're doing work with the Rwandan government to build training and so on and so forth in Rwanda, and which, by the way, congratulations to Paul Kagame, who won with a 92% mark, 92% like yesterday.
Very nice.
But the thing is that we're not going to be able to be there all the time. We're not going to, but we can select the best experts to solve their problems with tools like Go to Assist every time they have them, rather than having to have them all in country. And that's and it's really been made possible because of the fast pace of bandwidth, and the ability to actually grab onto this stuff. I mean, this stuff was, this crazy technology that was barely possible only a few years ago, and now it's commonplace. And so check it out. Once again, gotoassist.com/MacBreak. So now we have unobtainium. That's what I've decided that it should be called, because it's, it's very close to it. Apple has entered into an exclusive agreement to utilize amorphous metal alloys, with unique atomic structures allowing the products to be stronger, lighter, and resistant to wear and corrosion, according to Apple Insider. So, Andy, what makes this so special?
I honestly don't know. I wish I could. I wish I had some insider information or had a better understanding of what this material is. And you know that Apple is the most design-oriented company, the most materials-driven company in all technology. They are a company that will look at a block of milled tungsten and say, we should design an entirely new kind of screen around this block of tungsten. It will be the first tungsten screen. We'll call it something so that people don't think that it's just the filament of a light bulb, that is something that's actually important and cool. I just think that they have. I think that they found a way to make things lighter, to make mobile devices lighter, stronger, without having so much of the interior space of the device given over to structural components. But other than that, anybody's guess. It's such an early patent, early piece of information that we have no idea how this is going to play out.
I mean, in a lot of ways, Apple is always trying to innovate, you know, with the way that they're building the new laptops, the unibodies, and everything else. So trying to, you know, that pushing along that front edge of that path is a key piece of how they sell things and how they put stuff together, and not just making it the cheapest, but making it the best. Frederick, where do you think this might pop out?
You know, I don't know. You know, like Andy said, Apple is known for pushing the envelope in terms of materials to design crazy new cool things out of. My question is, when I first saw the story, I was like, I wonder if this thing can conduct radio waves. You know, if this new metal, you know, maybe they can create an entire phone out of this so that we won't have the problem of connecting two pieces. I don't know. But, you know,
here at Apple, we respect your privacy. We've developed the only phone that will never accept incoming calls or internet connections. Your privacy is secure.
Yeah, we locked it down.
The Apple Faraday.
You complained so much, we took the radio away.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, who knows? I mean, I'm excited to see what it is, but, you know, it may just turn out to be, hey, now the phone is 3 ounces lighter,
right?
You know, and no other differences.
Fred, have you seen YouTube videos?
Go ahead, Don.
Sorry. Have you seen the YouTube videos for the liquid metals? There's some great YouTube videos. It's basically harder than titanium, but they do a test whereby they get two sort of like two glass columns, and two ball bearings, and on one they have a standard piece of titanium, and on the other half they have this liquid metal composite material that's under you know, that they've just bought into, and they drop the two ball bearings, and the ball bearing on the titanium bounces for about 20 seconds, as you might expect. The ball bearing on the liquid metal bounces for 1 minute and 10 seconds. It's just unbelievable to actually watch because of the properties, the hardness of the metal. It just has this weird property whereby if you drop a ball bearing on it, it will just bounce. It looks as though it's never going to slow down, and it just stops. So it's really strange, but check out the videos on YouTube to see what it does. Now, what they're going to actually use it for, I'm sure they're not thinking of incorporating bouncing ball bearings in any of the machine. But yeah, it's probably just the hardness of the actual metal as well. I think they've used it in the past. Companies have used it for things like super efficient and super hard wearing hinges and things like that.
Right. It seems like it's a great additive for the iPods and iTouches and everything else. Most importantly, Frederick, do you think any Navi were injured in the creation and mining of this liquid metal?
I hope not.
I think that would be yet another, you know, you have the antenna problems, and then we have, you know, tribal problems on other planets. Hopefully Apple can avoid this.
Yes.
You know,
mining
I think we saw.
I hope we don't equate Apple to the hoarding corporation that goes and deforests the new world.
Hopefully, we can only hope that Apple has avoided this after seeing a word of warning from James Cameron. So anyway, also coming in the news here. Okay, here it comes. This comes up every so often. We have to keep on talking about it a little bit. AT&T warns exclusivity for, quote unquote, a number of attractive handsets will end. Okay, this is according to Apple Insider. In its latest filing with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, AT&T has made mention of its exclusivity agreements for smartphones and attempted to argue that the company would remain strong after those expire, though Apple's iPhone was not, of course, specifically named. Do we think, Andy, that the end is near for the Apple AT&T relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm skeptical of any new iPhone or new carrier rumors, only because we've heard them so often. But you know that Apple did not give AT&T unlimited open-ended exclusivity, and every year that passes without any sort of announcement that secret agreement is now invalid puts us, I think, another year closer to the year when we are going to hear that announcement that announcement is invalid. That's very when you see something that the company is willing to admit to stockholders, that has to really get your attention, because that's something that's so important that they can get sued and prosecuted if they don't actually say the sort of thing ahead of time. And I'm sure they're not talking about the Nokia N30 handset with the illuminated keypad and the 3 lines of LCD. I'm sure they're talking about the iPhone and stuff like that.
Well, and this is one of the things that I was at an Apple store. I mean, not an Apple store, an AT&T store. That's where I actually bought my kids their iPhones. And of course, I said, so what do people buy here? I mean, you have all the POP, like, so all the stuff on the store, all the posters, everything else, or nothing. There's like no iPhone anywhere in the AT&T store. Yeah. But you ask someone, what do people buy here? And they're like, iPhones. Right. So does this, Frederick, does this hurt AT&T? In some ways, does it help it by taking some of the pressure, some of the load off of their network?
I would have to say it's going to hurt. I mean, you're losing a cash cow, right? I mean, most people that I talk to, not every person, but most people that I talk to, my brother included, who incessantly rants that he's not buying an iPhone 4 until it goes to Verizon.
I am not using an iPhone.
You should see the text messages he sends me ranting about, the whole thing. But it's... who knows? I mean, I think ultimately it will hurt them, because now people will have choice. But for us consumers, it's good. It will spur on competition.
Don, do you think that AT&T's reputation has been permanently damaged by this entire process?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, not being in the US, we hear an awful lot about AT&T, and of course, I have to remind everyone that outside of the US, we're fortunate to have multiple carriers over here that support the iPhone. In fact, this time around, it was a real pleasure to go to the Apple Store, buy an iPhone 4, and then have my choice of carriers, who to go with. So I could actually buy. So I'm not tied into a contract now as far as the phone is concerned. I just, when the next phone comes out, I can actually just chop and change quite easily. But yeah, I mean, the overall impression that we get, sort of looking in from the outside, is that AT&T have a horrendous reputation. But it seems to be, in the areas where it really hurts them as well, so around Silicon Valley and San Francisco, places like that, where, it's the most vocal people seem to be, the most technically savvy people seem to be, they're having problems with their connectivity and their network. So, unfortunately, yes, I think it has done them a lot of damage. And I think that if the phone does go away to multiple carriers, it is going to hurt them anyway.
Andy, do you think that AT&T can recover from this as the iPhone starts to move away from them? I mean, because it's not just the overall view of AT&T has changed. Mm-hmm. It has been affected completely by its inability to kind of handle these issues and oftentimes handle the PR.
I don't think it's. I think the bad news is that they're going to lose all those exclusive iPhone contracts. I think that most of the people who are buying iPhones these days are going to the Apple Store, not the AT&T store. It's the contracts that are really going to hurt. In terms of their public relations, I don't think that's really going to be any ding whatsoever. Because if anything, they'll spend the next year building up statistics saying that, well, now that if you're not using an iPhone, our network works great. I don't know what it is about this iPhone that screws up other people's networks, but our network is just fine. They'll still have all the statistics they want to cite about the performance and the speed of their 3G network and how good they are at deploying other phones other than the iPhone.
By the way, I've actually learned that the tethering my iPhone would be, I haven't done it yet, would be cheaper than my MiFi. Mm. It's $30 and then it's $10 a gig.
Yeah. So you mean doing it the legal way, not using the jailbreak.me
right.
ME site,
no,
right?
We're talking about the legal process or the non-jailbroken version.
Very good.
Something to calculate, just in case you're wondering, because something I found out, is that if you go over the 5 gig limit for MiFi, it's a little bit more expensive than $10 a gig. It's $50 a gig.
Ooh.
And let me tell you how much it costs if you accidentally upload. Someone in your production team is using it and accidentally uploads 12 gigs of data. So it's a big bill.
How much? What's the number?
$600.
$600.
So it makes us sad. But that's, so it is.
That's your fi, not my fi.
But the big question, Alex, is how did you invoice that to the client?
Spread it out.
HDMI/DMDL conversion.
No comment. No, that was it came out of the margin. It didn't. The price was the same. We just made a lot less. So it was a sad thing.
Ouch.
So anyway,
Thank you. I will learn by your mistakes.
Yeah. So if you have a MiFi, take that into account. And so anyway, also we have in this mix of all of the stuff happening with AT&T, of course, the other issue that we have is that the Verizon phone looks like it's becoming more and more real. So there are rumors, and this is according to Electronicista, that Apple is edging closer to the Verizon phone in January with large orders of CDMA chipsets. Insiders reportedly said on Sunday that the company is queuing up "quote unquote" millions of Qualcomm chipsets for a production run that starts in December. The requests are coming in early. TechCrunch said as lead times for the chips often require months to generate enough supply, even when other components can be made more quickly. So. Are the rumors real? But also, one of the questions that I have for you, Andy, actually, is why not use... Qualcomm actually makes a chip that's GSM and CDMA. Why wouldn't Apple just use... And we don't know what chips. All we know is they're ordering lots of chips. Wouldn't it make sense for Apple to just use a hybrid chip?
That's the same question that I've been asking over the past couple of weeks. As a matter of fact, as soon as I started looking at the specs for that Qualcomm chip, I thought, there you go. That's exact. I bet this was made to order, or at least made in anticipation for a future market, as Verizon becomes pretty much the de facto network for the United States of America, or at least the non-iPhone United States of America. I could only think that there's a power requirement that Apple doesn't like, or there's some other cost to the chip, maybe even just the cost of the chip they don't like. The third reason could be just simple strategy. Why would they build one phone that one sure way of carrier locking your phone is to give it one sort of radio chipset that cannot be used with any other network in the United States of America? And so it's possible that they're thinking, with the amount of phones that we're going to sell through Verizon, why would we spend an extra penny and a half per part to make it easier for people to buy this phone and use it on another network?
Well, it's interesting is EVDO is actually in a bunch of countries. So I used it down in, I use the CDMA network in Brazil. It's available in, I think, I want to say 60 to 80 countries, a lot of the major ones. It's been slowly rolling out because of Verizon's success in some ways, because it's something that is, for the same number of cell towers, you get a lot more coverage. That's why Verizon has such a good network.
Yeah,
I was kind of thinking,
but a CDMA GSM phone, that would be a super phone.
Yeah, it would be the one. I mean, that would make it something that you could use in any country, in any process. You could theoretically switch to whichever one made the most sense in that country, even if they were both available.
But if it was just CDMA, then the whole idea of what I was thinking as I was in the grocery store the other day is you see those racks of Go phones and all those. Those are CDMA, right?
Right.
So what if Apple decided to create a really cheap version of an iPhone that's using that you can just buy off the rack?
Seems unlikely.
Seems unlikely, but
made out of marzipan,
10 million.
water soluble.
10 million. 10 million. Remember, they got to hit that 10 million number that they.
I just don't think. I think that all they have to do to get the 10 million is to turn the iMacs on. Like all the
FaceTime devices. Yeah,
but that's an easy number. Easy number to get to.
Device is something you hold, though. Appliance.
Don, do you want CDMA on your iPhone?
Not really. Mind you, again, in the UK, we're GSM pretty much. I think there is. I think Orange might have some CDMA, but predominantly it's GSM. And whenever I travel abroad, whenever I come to the States, I always use a AT&T service over there. So there's no real need for us over here to go down that route. It's not really a barrier for Apple to sell as many iPhones as they can, because again, we're not limited to just a single provider. All the providers that have now got the iPhone, are just GSM providers, so it's not an issue for us.
And Andy, you were saying before?
No, I was all I was saying is that. Goodness, I'm sorry. I was listening so carefully what other people were saying that I sort of disconnected from the rest of my comment. Basically, all I was saying is that. Forget it. I can't see the thing is, you're on a show with people who are like saying interesting things. So like, wow, goodness, that is a good point. I wonder, like, oh wait, huh, what?
Yeah, exactly. And then of course I just zing it over to Andy as I prepare.
And he was still processing.
Of course. So what happened was I needed another couple of seconds to make sure that I was ready to thank another one of our sponsors, which is Drobo. So of course we want to
cozy underneath this bus.
So of course we want to thank Drobo. Drobo.com/MacBreak is where you can go to get your savings, and there's a lot of good savings depending on what you're buying. So I'm a heavy user of Drobo. Frederick has some history with Drobo.
I do. I used to
work there.
I used to hawk their products.
And
I still own their products.
I own a lot of their products.
Yeah.
So I have got a couple Drobos at the house, a couple Drobos at the office. We keep a lot of the important data that we need to come back to all the time. Yep. We're keeping it on a Drobo because it's simple. Mm-hmm. I don't have to think about it. Of course, smaller files you can throw on the cloud, and that makes a lot of sense. And a lot of people have heard me say that if it's not in 2 places or 3,
which I've quoted many, many times,
doesn't exist.
A slogan that I was trying to push through that never got approved was, I use a Drobo because I'm lazy. I need my data to be available, and I don't want to work for it.
Well, and I don't want to think about RAID 5. For a lot of people, you don't want to think about RAID 5. You don't want to think about matching the drives. You don't want to think about having to rematch the drives if you want to make it bigger. You don't want to think about all those things. You just want it to be backed up and know that if one of the drives goes down, it's going to be still there. Yep. And so, that's why we've been using the Drobos for so long, and they're just, tried and true for us. We've been very, very happy. We have one of the bigger Drobos, the Drobo Elite down in the office, and we have 5 iMacs hooked up to it. We're editing from this Drobo, 5 computers all hooked into it. It's got a SCSI Ethernet, which, when people came to talk to me about the SCSI Ethernet, I was like, maybe that's going to work. I don't really know. But
SCSI has a bad taste in your mouth. Yeah.
Well, no, it was just like, I don't know if it's going to be fast enough to put a bunch of machines on it. And it turns out that we're editing HD video off of it, and it's just cranking away. And so we're looking at actually investing in another one for other parts of production, because this seems to work for what we need. And so anyway, so it's great. Of course, you have the original Drobo. That's what I have a lot of. You have the Drobo S, which I just need to say that I was the first one in the world to buy.
You were.
And then the Drobo Pro, which is fantastic. It's got 8 bays that you can have up to now, I guess. It's like up to 16 terabytes
online
of data. So there's a lot of data there you can get there. And of course, you can put it on, now you can have a bunch of machines looking at those larger ones and using them. And the thing is if you have a big IT staff and you want to build up these huge RAIDs, it still makes sense in some areas if you want super fast speed with fiber connections and all this stuff. But most people out there don't need that.
Yeah.
You might be sold that, but you don't need that. Right. What you need is something that just keeps all your data fairly safe. Now, really, to keep it safe, what you want is a Drobo in one place and a Drobo somewhere else, because it doesn't protect you from fire and everything else. But you're not going to worry about your drive going down. So definitely check it out. There are great TWIT prices. So these are great prices that you can get. So you can save as little as $75 if you're buying a Drobo, and as much as $1,200 if you're getting 2 Drobo Pros, or $500 if you're doing a Drobo Elite. All you have to do is go to drobo.com/MacBreak. So definitely go check that out. Check out the prices. Check out what they've got there. It's really a great solution, to make all of that stuff.
Yeah, Alex, I touched on the Drobo in this week's show for Screencast Online. I was looking at the Pogo plug, which is the personal cloud storage device that you plug into your own network, and then you can access all your data from the web. And one of the segments on the show this week actually included plugging a Drobo into the USB port on the Pogo plug. So you can sort of immediately, if you've got 2 or 3 terabytes of data on your Drobo, you plug it into the Pogo plug, and then you can access all that data across the web. And it's a really neat solution if someone doesn't want to go to a standard cloud-based solution. Right. But they want to put lots of information on the web, they can just plug a Drobo straight into a Pogo plug.
And the thing is that I will say that I'm a big fan of storing a lot of data on the cloud, except when I put it up there on a MiFi.
Yeah.
I think that then it becomes a really expensive storage solution. But it makes sense to have it on the cloud. And really, to me, the thing that makes the most sense for the data that's the most important, and when I say the data that's most important, your company records, your family photos, your family information, all these things that your family home videos, all these things that would really hurt if you lost. Having it one place in the cloud and one place on a Drobo, if you have it in those 2 places, if you lose the data at that point, you're going to be worried about other things other than your data. You're going to be worried about the fact that we're not going to see the sun for the next 100 years.
Yeah, one of the main issues that folks hit when you're dealing with large amounts of data, and I talk to photographers all the time because, This Week in Photo. Yeah. But it's, you want to have it in the cloud, but you're on this treadmill that's running faster than you are in terms of your shooting. Like, say you're a wedding photographer shooting gigabytes, of data every weekend and trying to pump that up to the cloud to protect it up there and then mirror it over here, and then it just gets out of hand and you don't do it.
Right.
But what Don was saying in terms of using a Pogo plug, you could potentially circumvent that because it's local as well, and you copy it on there, and then it's in the cloud and accessible, and you can have multiple locations and all that. So, I think that's a really good solution. I'm gonna look into that, Don. That's cool.
Yeah, fantastic. So moving on, we have some interesting, timing. Microsoft, this is according to Apple Insider, Microsoft is attempting to discourage PC users from switching to the Mac, oddly enough. Microsoft has launched a new website that tells PC users that they have Blu-ray. They have more software choices. They have a greater array of hardware options when compared to Apple's Mac platform. Andy, what's your take on this?
Yeah, well, part of it is just the timing is not mysterious because July and August are the months when they sell lots of laptops. It's also not surprised that they're concerned about how well Apple does to educate in selling computers to people in college and people in high school. They just sort of own that market. But I've got their site in front of me, and there's a mixture of really great points that Apple could never really fight against, which is the versatility, the genetic diversity of Windows machines that are out there. And if there's one thing I've always really sort of envied about the Windows marketplace, it's that no matter what sort of computer you have in your mind, you can find it out there somewhere. Whatever size, whatever speed, whatever features, whatever form factor, it's out there. You can go get it. As opposed to, do you want the one that's almost like this, almost like that, or not quite what you wanted over here, which is the problem you get when you're buying a Mac. But then you're talking about, you get to the paragraph, simplicity, intuitive, familiar, and easy to use. PCs do what you want. They just work. And you're like, okay, flag on the play, roll it back, four more downs, 20-yard penalty.
Offsides, personal foul.
Microsoft, I'm going to stop you there. Thanks for coming in. We'll keep your resume and headshot on file. There's the door.
Yeah. Don?
Yeah, I saw this a couple of days ago. And a couple of issues, really. It doesn't look very good. It seems a bit disjointed. With Apple, when you get the Apple message about PCs versus Mac, it's a very sort of coherent story, and it feels as though it's actually coming from the top. Whereas this particular page on this website, it does feel very much it's a subdivision somewhere has gone away and done this sort of on their own, rather than the corporate message coming across. It seems very amateurish the way they put it together.
In many ways, isn't this indicative of the difference between Microsoft and Apple? Yeah,
it could be. It could be. I mean, there were some tweets. I need to pull it out, but someone sort of compared the Apple site, on choosing a Mac over a PC and compared this one, and they're just worlds apart. It seems to spread fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's FUD. Basically, if you're a Mac user and you look at this page, you can see through it straight away. And as Andy said, there's plenty of good points that they do make, but there's some that are just, might have been applicable 10 years ago, but surely not now. But again, only a Mac user would know that. A PC user would not know this. So it's just sort of prolonging some of the older thoughts about using a Mac and the perceived limitations in the early days.
Does it do more to hold on to your current users than really attract new ones? Because the other thing is are people really going to find this page?
Yeah, that's exactly the thing I was going to say. I think it's this is more feel-good fodder for Windows users than it is to convert people from the Mac over to Windows. So this is, hey, look at this. They said it's simple and works hard.
Something to tell your friends.
Yeah, it's copy and paste these paragraphs into your favorite trolling blog rant.
And I will say that, I was talking to someone about PC versus Macs, and I said, I probably spent somewhere between 20 and 40% of my day on a Windows machine. It's a Mac, but it's got Windows running on it because there are specialty applications that we need that I need to be on if I'm using Motion Builder, which is this high-end software, and there's some other graphics pieces and conversion tools and lots of things that I just can't find on a Mac. And so I'll swap over, into Windows and make that work. We're looking at developing some hardware at our office. We're not developing it on Mac. We're developing it most likely on Linux because we can't design what we need. So there's a lot of reason for that open, and I think there's a lot of advantages. The problem is when they protest too much.
Yeah, it's like you look at the headline, it says deciding between a PC and a Mac, right? Which is misleading because you can run. It should be deciding between Windows and Mac OS 10, kind of thing, which it is not.
Also, in this in a related story, Dell has published.
Away from that, Alex, can I just make one more point about this particular page, which really has irritated me considerably, and that's the if you actually go to the page, there's what looks to be a Twitter feed in the sidebar, which is what the buzz is about, and then you have a standard sort of scrolling Twitter feed of people making nice comments about Windows 7, etc. And okay, fair enough. Obviously there's lots of Windows users, and they will be generating lots of tweets, so this is fairly, that's great. But I closed the page down and. Someone else mentioned something about the page, and I went back to it, and I saw the very same tweets appearing again. And if it's actually not a live Twitter feed, it's actually curated tweets that they've captured and are presenting it. Although it doesn't say it's a live Twitter feed, it just looks like a live Twitter feed. And I just found that to be really disingenuous, really. You know, that, you know,
I don't know. I
it's
mean,
sort of,
when
it doesn't give me a nice feeling, Andy. That's the thing.
Well, I mean, that's a pretty common thing to do, though. I mean, when we see movie reviews, we have like entertaining, even though the whole comment was it's entertaining if you're a rodent, you know that kind of thing, you know. So, Frederick, no, Andy.
When I first saw that Twitter that ticker, I did say, well, I wonder what would happen if I were to sort of like paste some of these Twitter handles like into twitter.com/ and take a look at the entire feed, and was almost disappointed to find that almost all of them are in fact real, genuine Twitter feeds. Then they're not like owned by Microsoft or something like that, or at least they don't appear to be owned by Microsoft or something like that. But I don't think there's anything wrong with them simply saying that they can't simply say that anything. If you want to say anything about Microsoft Windows and have it appear on Microsoft.com, just use the hashtag Windows 7, and we're sure it's going to work out just perfectly fine.
Yeah, they could pay someone to sit there and just, you know, remove the ones from Mac users, couldn't they? And just, you know, just have real life.
I think it's more like they just flag a handful of them that are particularly good and particularly useful.
Now, Dell, of course, jumped on this bandwagon as well. They're trying to, of course. We are comparing apples to apples in the Dell webpage, and of course, this is dealing with back to school. So they're really aiming at this low end or low cost pieces, and they're trying to interconnect. The fact that it's much cheaper to get what you need, and this is on top of news that has been coming out that Apple is selling as many as half of the students entering college this year are planning to get a Mac computer. So, and this was a huge change from only 5 years ago. Apple just kind of focused their Apple eye on this market and seems to have made big inroads. Andy, what do you think of the data that they're comparing here as we look at it?
I think it's right on the money. I mean, it's hard to it's a diverse group of people that are buying machines for college, but everybody wants to get a Mac. When I talk to people individually, about what they're buying, what they're hoping to get is a $999 MacBook and not even like a $1,500 top of the line Windows machine. So this is right in line with what I've been seeing. It's also right in line with other studies I've seen from other sources.
Is part of this that for the average student, Frederick, the average student doesn't need big graphics cards. The average student doesn't need, and a lot of them have gotten to the point where they're good enough. I mean, we're talking about 200. We used to think that a game machine had 256 megs of VRAM was great. Now we have laptops that have more than that. Right. So the thing is that we're looking at a lot of machines that at $999 are good enough, and it doesn't really matter whether they're the craziest, fastest thing in the world. Once again, this gets back to the Apple's argument of being a truck. So is it an issue where students want that fashion item, want that slightly more stable, more media-driven item than anything else?
I think you hit it largely on the head. I think it's a lot of it is perception and brand perception and affinity, but it's also the ecosystem, right? So if they're going in there with their new iTouch, that you call it,
iTouch,
their iPod Touch.
That's a great name.
Or their, you should trademark it.
Sure,
or their
Apple
iPhones. Yeah, of course. Their iPhones, and they're using iTunes presumably, and they're in the whole iUniverse already. Then it makes sense to stay in there with a Mac, right? Not that you have to, right? But to stay in there with a Mac, and they're using all the Apple stuff already. Plus, Apple has that incredible horsepower and momentum moving forward. Why not? And my roommate has it, and I can use her software. All this stuff, So I think it's part of the whole ecosystem, and then on top of that, the icing on the cake is the brand cachet that Apple has, and students want that.
Yeah, and I think that for me, the big thing is that we were speccing out tens of computers for a company, and they were asking why are we getting the Apple hardware instead of PC, even though a lot of what we're going to be doing is on the Windows. I was like, well, you get both platforms. I don't have to choose. I can run anything on a PC, anything on a Mac, and I just get the same hardware. But almost all the machines that we get are dual boot. Yeah. And so I think is a challenge for Dell, is because Dell, of course, is selling those PCs. They're stuck in that singular platform where if you buy an Apple machine, you're getting both platforms. So I think that's one of the issues that you get into. I think that the Dell. I think there's a lot of things when I look at the performance that you get on many of these machines. the raw performance on a PC, I think, no matter how you compare it, is better than a Mac for the same price. I mean, I'm not going to. I think that if you're geeky, and you're willing to dig into it, you're going to get a better value with a Windows machine
based solely on performance.
Right. Based solely on performance. As you start to dig into the ease of use, as stability.
But when you want to use the machine,
right.
It will render all day faster than a Mac. But when you decide to use it for stuff, then you hit roadblocks, right?
But there's still two areas in which Apple just can't compete. One is price, and the other is in gaming. And those are two really big issues when you're talking about someone who's going into school for the first time, because there are a lot of people who want their desktop machine is just an ungodly Jesus wept digital killing machine, and when people make that transition from their home into the first college dorm, they really want to take that with them. They can have a really good gaming laptop for $800, $900. They really can't do that on the Mac for less than $1,500, and even then they're dealing with a lack of software. And then they're the folks who just don't have $1,000 to spend on a notebook. And then when you show them, especially when you see that HP particularly is willing to make sure that we're going to make a kick butt $549 laptop that to at least surface appearances will make you sacrifice very, very little compared to an $800 or $900 Windows notebook. That's a really hard thing to sell somebody on. It's hard to upsell them to an Apple at that point.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's heresy, but for me, gaming machines are Xboxes and PlayStations and that kind of thing, and Wii's, and they're separate from my Mac world.
Well, and I have to admit that part of the foundation of me wanting Apple, wishing probably that Apple would open source or license OS 10 when they're done with it, because I really think that iOS 5, is OS 11. So I think that I think that I personally think that's the direction. Taking the old interface, the old operating system, and making that available to companies like Dell and HP, and allowing them to soup the machines up. My problem right now is that
you're saying Mac OS 10 would be sloppy seconds that they would then let go out
exactly
while they focus on the new iOS, which is the new big thing for them.
They're going down that path. They all the machines. I personally think that the Magic Trackpad or whatever is the beginning of that, where we're going to make sure that you can interface with your Mac in the same way that you can interface with your iPad and your iPhone. So that if you're building applications, because there's a lot of applications on my iPad that I just want to run on my truck. Yeah. And so the thing is that so I think that they're going down that direction, and the reason that I want that is because Apple is behind when it comes to the truck development. They're so focused on iPhones, they're so focused on iPads. People like me who need the trucks, I need big machines. It's fine that they gave us a 12 proc machine. That's not. I mean, I want more. I want more. I want more drives. I want bigger graphics machines. I want all this stuff to be added on.
You're a sub minority, though.
That's fine.
Regard, right?
The point is that on the PC platform and on the Linux platform, people like me are taken care of. Yeah. Because those things. Now, why do we not use them that much? Is because we still have to use Windows to deal with it, and I still have to deal with viruses and instabilities and all these other things, and I have to deal with 60 versions of the same. Is it compatible with the hardware that I bought, and all those things. So those are the challenges that are going down that path. But for people like me who need that heavy hardware or need specialized hardware, you can't. I go, well, we might need to use, we do use PCs, to go down that path.
Sure.
But that's a very real. Don, I'm sorry, you go. I've already spoken.
I was just going to go back to your point, Andy, about Apple can't compete on price at the low end, and I think you're right, they can't. But the reason they can't is because they don't want to. And I think Apple have always tried to build a quality product at a reasonable price. Some people might think it's not reasonable, but there's build quality, there's reliability, etc. There's quality of components, etc. But it seems I always like the analogy of the car analogy of a low price car and a high price car. They both basically do the same job, but the higher price car is a completely different beast to the lower price car. They do the same thing. They get it from A to B, but they do it in a different way. And I think it's the price differential is extremely marked at the low end. The lowest priced Mac compared to the lowest priced PC or netbook. But I think when you get up into the higher range machines, I think that differential does drop off. If you actually spec up a high end PC from Dell, a high end notebook, It's pretty comparable to a high-end Apple.
It's not the price performance that I'm talking about. What I need is I need more PCI. I need more boards. So I'm a perfect example of someone. I don't care about. I mean, it's not that I don't care about the price. But the price for me is not as important as being able to put more internal drives in, or being able to put more boards in, or being able to have USB 3, which Apple is woefully behind on. It is actually starting to hurt our business to for me to have to add USB 3 slots to everything because I now have lots and lots of video tools that are using USB 3, and Apple is got their head in the sand somewhere. I don't get it. I don't get why they released the Mac Pro without USB 3 slots. So now I'm going to have to add those in. That takes up some of my slots in the back. I just want to be able to buy the machine the way I want to buy it. And the thing is that if Apple's not going to keep up with it, it's fine. Just let everybody else keep up with it, and you can keep on focusing on the iPad and the iPhone. Sure. It's fine with me for them to do that. I don't, but that's the frustration I have, is that Apple isn't keeping up with the trucks, and and then we're kind of stuck in that area, and I think that is the advantage. Yeah. The PC and Linux boxes. Okay, last story before we move on to picks of the week. We've got, this is another story that bubbles up every once in a while. FTC, according to Apple Insider, is the United States Federal Trade Commission has denied a Freedom of Information Act request for the documents related to the complaint filed by Adobe against Apple, stating that the release of the information would impede the commission's quote-unquote law enforcement duties. So this is bringing up the rumor again that the FTC is kind of researching and figuring out what to do about Flash. Do we think this is going to yield any changes, Frederick?
I don't think so, and I was not paying attention to. You said,
see, I just threw that ball right at him.
Now I'm under the bus.
I threw him under the bus.
You may now emerge from the bus. I am now under the bus.
See, I gotta Bird no look pass.
See, yeah, exactly.
I was researching my pick of the week.
I threw it over. I threw it. What happened was I was running one way and I threw it cross field, and Frederick ran a post instead of an out.
For sure, I had a 1 in 3 chance. Right, I was for sure he's gonna throw it to somebody else.
I've been throwing first down plays to Andy most of the time, and he was expecting a third down running play to
at least a minute before I have to answer that.
Exactly. And Don's like, I don't understand all these American football references.
No, you know what the problem is? It's just Flash. You mentioned Flash to anyone who knows anything about Apple, and they just switch off now. After all the furore about the iPhone and the iPad, etc. Flash blank, But
well, do you think? Here's the thing: is when I talk to people about using Flash, I go, I don't think I would do that. That's kind of my response. Like, yeah, I don't. I wouldn't develop in that right now because we don't know. We don't know now. Android is building
has sort of soiled the whole thing in terms of. I mean, it's a dead technology. It's going away. But I still maintain that.
It's not that it's a dead technology.
I don't think it's dead.
I don't think it's a dead technology, but it is if you're going to spend millions of dollars developing something, you don't want to cut out a huge part of your market. And I think this is why the FTC is looking into it, is that it's not that it's a dead technology, but it creates uncertainty. And uncertainty is something that people who are spending millions of dollars in development don't want to deal with. Right. You don't want to know that, I don't know how this is going to go. Andy?
No, I think, in general, Adobe's just reacting the way that Apple would if a large, huge company suddenly said that support of Macintosh networking and Macintosh disk formats was irrelevant because it's an old dying technology and it makes things buggy and crashing. Adobe is just doing, they're defending their intellectual property in their business, which is something that they really should be doing. I think that in terms of this new revelation that they can't get access to these files, I did talk to somebody, because this is another one of those very broad areas where I get into it, then very quickly check off that box that says, Andy, you don't know what you're talking about here. And so I rented a CNI nerd to try to explain how the FCC works. And the way that they explain it to me is that oftentimes it's kind of like between the FCC and asking for these documents, it's kind of like asking for information about a long since declassified operation from World War II, where it really doesn't matter that this spy paid off some guy $20 for this piece of information in Spain in 1943 anymore, but that when they deny it, it's not because they're protecting this operation, but because there's something that's connected to this that could be connected to this in the long run. So what it came down to is I walked away thinking that just because the FCC is not releasing this file does not necessarily mean that they're pursuing an action against Apple for Flash. It just means that this request, the information contained in this file, is in some way relevant to anything else that they could be looking into at the moment. So,
do you think there's any merit?
I don't think there's any merit. They went to, and I had another lawyer try to explain that one to me, saying that in order for any company to prove that Apple is doing anything illegal, that they should be enjoined into supporting Flash, should say that they have an interest in destroying this technology, that their business is being hurt by the presence of this other business, and that therefore they're trying to collapse Adobe's business in order to make their own balance sheets better. And right now, all they can say, all anybody can truthfully say, is that Apple is making a creative choice, that they don't want to support this because it doesn't make sense to them, and it gives them a lot more work for very little payoff as far as they're concerned. And for that reason, it's like the lawsuit saying that my coffee was a little too cold, I'm going to sue Starbucks for $8 million. Okay, you can sue them, but unless you can prove how you were harmed by this, you're not going to get very far with that. And I think that's where all these things are going to end.
Frederick, are you ready?
I am ready.
Here's the question for you.
I am fully prepared now. Bring it on.
Here's the question I have for you. Does the success of the Android platform start to blunt any kind of argument that Apple has any kind of monopoly, and therefore would that could really damage an entire market? So the fact that the iPhone and possibly the iPad is getting a smaller and smaller market share, does that undermine Adobe's case?
Absolutely, yeah, because the whole thing, it goes away completely, in my opinion, or it gets diluted. But back to the other point of Flash a little bit. Just wanted to talk about that. So a lot of the perception that I hear is that it's either Flash or HTML5. That Flash is a dead technology because HTML5 can do all this magical stuff. But I think that's bunk. Because I think on the Flash side, there's these robust applications out there that I don't believe unless...
Well, this is the biggest problem. What you're pointing to is the biggest problem with HTML5 is there's no good authoring tools.
Well, I mean, not even authoring tools. Even if there were robust, amazing authoring tools, I don't see you creating a GoToMeeting or a GoToWebinar or whatever and executing that kind of level software in HTML5. Those kind of deep, intricate applications that need to run.
Well, I think you could.
Locally.
I think you could do it, but I don't think that the problem is that without and this is the problem that QuickTime had. QuickTime was as good as Flash in 2000. They were equal on equal footing, and Apple never had a good development platform, and Flash did, and or better. I don't like the application that much. But when you look at Flex,
it's largely a display thing, right? I mean, it's for looking at stuff. There's some interactivity that you can do in there, but which is good, and you can do some pretty intricate things. Right. But in terms of programmatic code,
when you're looking at the
heavy code that's displaying video, allowing chat rooms, and doing all this crazy gaming and all that stuff. Show me another platform out there that can do that kind of thing. So I think there's room for both. I don't want Flash on my iPad. I don't need it there. I'm happy to put the apps on there that let me do all my stuff, or on my iPhone. But if I sit at my computer and
here's the problem
I'm looking at a GoToMeeting thing or whatever, I want a better, deeper, rich experience.
But the issue is if the tablets and the phones are the future, and there's no Flash on them. Is this a problem, or is this just a huge opportunity for the other tablet makers?
Maybe there's something else. Maybe we need another language. I don't know.
And Don?
Yeah, I wouldn't like to see Flash go away. I don't think it ever will go away, to be honest, because there are places where Flash is fine, but I don't really miss it on the iPad. I really don't. Most of the services that I access on the iPad now have either been rewritten to cope with HTML5 or there are just other methods of viewing the video. So it really doesn't impact me in any serious way, the lack of Flash on the iPad. And as the Android market grows, and there's never going to be one single sort of main winner in the smartphone market. I mean, Apple are going to be happy to stay with selling tens of millions of iPhones and still have a small
happy to settle with tens of millions.
Yeah, it's just exactly the same as with the with the Mac. They've got this nice 8 to 10% market share. They're doing very nicely. Thank you very much. And I don't think for 1 minute that they want to have 80% of the smartphone market, and I don't think they ever will do, because Android is not just a single phone with a single platform. It's multiple phones, different variants of Android, and multiple vendors. So the whole sort of monopoly type thing really doesn't.
In some ways, doesn't this problem actually underline why Apple wouldn't want to have a monopoly over any market? Because it means that they suddenly can't do what they want to do with their own platform. They get into the issues that Microsoft had, or the issues that owning any market means that you're going to start dealing with antitrust issues. Whereas if you have lots of small pieces of lots of markets, it seems to be advantageous in some ways to retaining the flexibility and control over your platform.
So, I agree.
So we've got Picks of the Week coming up here next. So while everyone's getting ready.
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready? Before that, though, of course, we want to thank our final sponsor of the day, Gazelle.com. And Gazelle.com, of course, is a place that you can actually go up to the website, find, how much your item is worth, and sell it. And they'll send you a little box. It comes in a little box.
Have you done it yet?
So we have this little area that we've been piling stuff up, getting ready for Gazelle. I think actually my first experiment. This is probably a good place to talk about it. My first experiment with Gazelle is most likely going to be my. It's leaning towards being. What do you call it? My Microsoft little player. What's it?
Zune?
It's my Zune.
Yeah, exactly.
Say my Zune back. If that Zune tells me I can't play songs because I got to sign in one more time, done. That's all I'm saying. I'm done. Because the problem is I end up on a plane and I go, oh, I've got all this music that I didn't have on my iPhone, and then I can't sync. Or I have to pay $14 or $5 or whatever to sync on it on the plane just so I could go back to listening to it. I'm just like, eh. So and I've gotten caught. It just seems like every single time, like every month, I'm disconnected for some reason when it decided I needed to check in, and so the wonders of a subscription service started to wear off quickly, and I find that I just because all I use it for really is my music player, and so anyway, I've decided it doesn't work, and so I've decided that Gazelle, it's $105. That's what it's worth, because I got all the cables, and it's in good condition because I didn't use it very much, and so Gazelle is it. But here's the thing: is that whether it's a smartphone or MP3 player, laptops, game consoles, any of these gadgets that you have laying around, and they're building up, and you're doing your house cleaning, and you go, find out how much it's worth, find out, and they'll take them, and if they're not worth anything, if they get them and they're not worth anything, or they're not going to resell them, they're going to recycle them for you, in a responsible way. And there's 20 categories. There's 200,000 unique items that you can test. You can look at a cool little graph that tells you whether you're the trajectory of what you're going to get for it, and when you should jump off the ship. And so it's just a great. Makes it super easy to get rid of these electronics and get a little money back so you can go buy something new. So definitely check it out, Gazelle.com. And it's really just a great marketplace where you don't have to worry about the marketplace. I mean, a lot of people, deal with eBay. It's just too much trouble. I can't deal with eBay. I mean, I don't want to try to figure out how to resell this stuff.
You got to package it up. You got to take it to a place. You got to ship
I have to, talk to people. I just want to go up online, have a box show up and put it in there.
It's like that interaction with carbon-based life forms. It's just I don't like that.
Here's the deal: is I like to interact with carbon-based life forms when I get to choose to do it. But just to simply get rid of my electronics, I don't really feel like I need to interact with carbon-based life forms. That's all I'm saying. I would prefer to deal with the cloud. It's fluffy. It's nice. Silicon, which is kind of carbon. Well, anyway, we don't get into that. Anyway, so if you want to get 5% more for what you're getting from Gazelle.com, use MacBreak 2. I don't know why it's MacBreak 2, but anyway, MacBreak, the number 2, is your offer code, and you'll get 5% more than you would have gotten. So definitely check that out, Gazelle.com, and just Gazelle it. Gazelle it.
I like that.
Since you've been preparing, Frederick,
I get to go first?
You get to go first. What's your pick of the week?
All right. Because I'm hosting This Week in Photo, my pick is photography related. And it is this new site that came across my desk. Somebody emailed this to me, actually. It's called Yogile. Yogile. YOGILE.com. YOGILE.com. Liquidmetalile.com. And what it is, it's a photo sharing site. So I use Flickr, I use SmugMug, I use all those
Use them
sites.
all.
I use them all. Yeah, and they're all great for their unique purposes. But this one kind of flips it a little bit and allows others. It's basically group sharing. So you could have a group of people, that you allow access to upload into this one area.
Love it.
And you curate it.
Now, can't you do that with iPhoto and Flickr?
You can, but not like this. This is a
Not
cloud.
easy.
This is a cloud-based service,
Right.
where you log in, you get a username and password. It's free, But let me see some of the features they have on here. They say they let multiple people contribute with ease, add photos as email attachments. So you get an email address where people can just, hey, shoot a photo in here so you can shoot it from your phone or whatever. Customizable URLs, which is cool. And this is the cool piece that I was like, oh, really cool. No need for users to register. So you set
What's the URL again?
YOGILE. So you set it up. Give people an email address to send to, and suddenly people can send. So you throw in a party or something. You say, hey, everybody, you're taking all these camera phone pictures. Make sure you send them to this link or to this URL or to this email address, and they automatically show up in your album. Just like that.
That's cool. I mean, it seems like the kind of thing that you can almost do now, but not as easily. And I think that it's I know that, like, when you're at a concert or at a big event, these are the kind of things that would be really cool to have
It's
access
just,
to.
it's brain dead simple to set up. You just set it up and go. We've got 3 fields on the front page. Your email, your password, and the album password, and you're done. You're off and running. So
YoGile,
Yogli, maybe the CEO or whoever can reach
let us
out
know
and
what it is.
say
Yeah. Now
how
that-
you pronounce your name.
but it's YoGile.com.
Check it out.
And we can test everybody's. We can test their servers right now by just telling everybody who's listening right now.
We should test
go
it on This
there.
Week in Photo. Do a This Week in Photo and set it up and say, everybody that listens, submit to this one account.
Yeah,
See
exactly.
how many it can handle.
Exactly. So anyway, we'll test that in the near future. Andy, what's your pick of the week?
My pick of the week is a really cool DIY project called the Minty Boost. If you go to Lady Ada or ladyada.net, LADYADA.net, it is a iPhone/iPod recharger/booster that you just pop a couple of AA batteries in, even the brand new Apple rechargeable AA batteries. And you can hook up any USB device into the USB port, and you will get about another charge to your iPhone. They've just updated it to work with the iPhone 4. Now, the cool thing about it is that it is like an open source project. This is the Minty Boost right here. It is a package of components that you then simply solder together. It has a little circuit board and all the parts you need. Here's their battery holder. Here's the IC. It's a really simple electronics kit. It's about maybe a dozen and a half joints, connections to make all in all. So it's not like you're building like an entire computer here. And it's designed so that it will fit inside a mince container. It is designed specifically to fit within an Altoids box. So not the regular sort of Altoids, but like the Altoids gum box. If you go to ladyada.net/make/Minty Boost, you'll actually see it actually beautifully laid out with batteries and everything, with a USB connector tucked into it. I love it for a bunch of different reasons. Number one, they posted. I bought it chiefly to reward them for this really awesome video they posted, because they had to sort of reverse engineer how USB charging works on the iPhone, because the really simple chargers like this, they just simply put power on these 2 pins of the USB port of the USB connector, and that's supposed to charge it. What they had to do was really start to scope out what this connector does, and they figured out that you need to have a resistor across 2 separate pins to tell the iPhone, yes, I definitely want you to charge off of this, do a quick charge, do a slow charge. And it's such a really wonderfully done video of how you reverse engineer anything that I thought was really cool. Secondly, what I like about this project is that if you're at my level of electronics expertise, I could not design this circuit, but if you give me the components for this circuit, I can then bend it and make it do what I want it to do. Immediately I thought, well, that's cool, but what I really supposedly this will give you about an extra 50% of battery life on your iPhone on your iPhone. And I'm thinking, well, geez, then there's really nothing stopping me from, that's a 2 AA solution. I could just simply put in another battery bank of 2 batteries, wire them in parallel, drop in a diode to prevent these batteries from charging each other and exploding, and I would have double the amperage and double the charge capacity. And then you can also think, yeah, but what if I got these like old laptop batteries. So what if I got like an old laptop battery from my Dell with those huge ultra capacity? And it's a completely open source thing. So so the instructions tell you exactly how it's designed and what it needs. As long as you have hooked up to a power source that will give it less than 5 volts, you can essentially turn whatever you want into a charger. So I haven't actually built mine yet, chiefly because I keep waffling on what kind of container I want to install it in. I actually wanted, this is a Mentos container that I decided that I actually discovered. Hang on, let me pour out the gum. Another problem is that I have to eat all the gum before I can actually build this.
There's always that.
Exactly. It's a nice hard plastic container, and then I noticed that the battery pack slips nicely inside there like a glove. Unfortunately, I had to saw off like the very, very top of it, because the top of it is like a little bit narrowed, so that this fitted cap can fit on top of it. So now I'm thinking, well, that's okay. I'll just like get 2 of these and sort of like put a seam on one of them, heat shrink them together and glue them together. So one will be capped for battery sled. The other one will be capped for the USB connector. So it's a cheap kit, $20 if you want them to send you everything that you need, and it will give you. It's like buying one of those model kits when you were a kid. Part of the fun is following the directions, and part of the fun is, yeah, but what if I don't want this to be a World War II fighter plane? What if I want this to be like a Millennium Falcon style one? And you start like replacing the wings and putting different decals on. And so at the end, sometime in the next 3 years, when I finally decide what kind of power source I want, what I want to build it inside, whether I want to put a solar panel and a wind propeller on it, I'll wind up building this. But it's a fun little project. I think it's well within the capacities of anybody who can operate a soldering iron. And it's $20, and you're supporting some really cool people, I think.
The video is, as someone who has to build a lot of these videos, the video is just stellar.
Absolutely.
It is, I tweeted it. Yeah,
I tweeted about it.
That's how I saw it.
This is exactly how you should demonstrate technology on any subject. Doesn't matter what it is. I'm sorry, all respects to Don. Don is actually, every single video he does here's how to demonstrate technology. But I've never seen something as complicated as, we have no idea why this is not charging properly. So we are first going to attach this to a scope to try to figure out exactly what the current drain is on this in various charging modes. And now here's how we operate this disassembly tool that will apply gentle heat to the surface.
By the way, I need one of those. I need one.
And so the little tweezer's getting this tiny half of a grain of rice size resistor, and then figuring out like what kind of resistance values that it's popping out. And I'm like, oh, that's one of the best. You can keep your cat playing the piano. You can keep the college kid skateboarding and getting hit in the nuts. That's entertaining as it is. That's the Lady Ada video is exactly what I like to watch.
And I think that's actually a great, when we talk about content, that's how you develop a following that will buy anything that you're making based on just the content. Like when we first started DV Garage and I was doing these little training tutorials or whatever, we got a lot of people who bought from us just to make sure we kept on making the training videos. And in the same way, they were like, well, I don't really need this, but I'm going to buy it because
it's a donation.
It's a donation. Just think of it as a donation, because there's no donation box on your website, and I need to give you some money to keep on doing that. Very cool. But this video was not only really interesting, but it was well shot. It was well organized. It was a thought process, and I picked it up. I saw it on your Twitter feed, and that's how I found it. And it was really great. So definitely worth checking out. Dawn, and by the way, it's Lady Ada, is that right? LadyADA.net. So definitely check that. There's a lot of other stuff on it. It's a great website. So definitely check out the website.
I'm not the last project I'm going to buy from them. It's I like these little electronic projects, especially things that can make me think that I know about electronics. Because, well, of course, it was just a 2 AA charger, but I'm the one who decided to put a lantern battery on it, and I blew it up. But the second one, I also blew up. But the third one I built.
And I didn't really need that iPhone. So, I probably should have put a diode there. But anyway, but it starts you off on rails. And then after that, you kind of blow out.
You've just identified the reason why 8 years ago I learned that just because you could hook up 2 batteries in parallel and double the amperage doesn't mean that you could just simply drop that into any circuit. That's what I learned about diodes.
Exactly. So, Don, you're up.
Right. Actually, I have to say, Andy, I watched the video as well, and I actually nearly stole one technique, which was to the way she actually wrote with a Sharpie on just a simple A4 pad.
Yes.
And sketched out. I thought that was brilliant. I thought, I can use that, until I realized I couldn't draw, and then went back to Keynote. So never mind. I must practice my drawing. But anyway, on to my tip. Okay, my pick for this week. It's a very, very simple one, actually. It's to do with, again, we've talked a lot about the cloud and a lot about sharing files this week. And this is a very, very simple application called, you can get it at getcloudapp.com. It's actually called Cloud App. And it's very simple. It's based on Amazon S3, which is the back-end storage. So, you've got super efficient, super secure storage. But it's really meant for public sharing of files. So if you want to share a file and then send someone a link on Twitter or in an email, basically all you do is you install Cloud App, install the application. It installs a menu bar item in your menu bar. And to share the file, all you do basically is just drag the file from the Finder and drop it on the menu bar icon. It uploads it automatically in the background. And then if you have Growl enabled, it will give you a Growl message to let you know that it's done. And then it pastes a link into your, into your buffer. So you can just copy the link straight into a tweet or into an email. Now, it sounds very simple, but it works very effectively. And, if you just want to share something quickly, it's very easy just to drag something up into the menu bar and boom, it's done. It's automatically shared. You can create, it's meant for public use. So you're not really recommended to put any sort of secure, any personal information up there. But if you want to share something with a group of people, it's very easy to do. You can get sort of extra long shortened URLs to the link. You can switch on a privacy setting that gives you that. But it also does things such as it gives you a web interface as well. You can actually see from the menu bar item what files you've shared, how many people have downloaded them. You can get the links again. That's all very neat. You can also go to a web interface where it gives you more information. It breaks down the types of files that you've uploaded, such as images, zip files, audio files, movie files. I did a quick test demo of an iPhone movie file that I got from the iPhone and posted it using the same service a couple of days ago. And I've just looked now, and there's like 500 people have actually downloaded it and taken a look at that movie file. So it's very easy.
What's the price? How does this work?
It's free. It's free at the moment. There is some discussion on the forums. They seem to be a little bit slow in producing a pricing structure, but it's a free service. There always will be a free component, but I think the model they're going to use is to use a premium service later on. When they once they're out of the stage, they'll introduce pretty similar to Dropbox. You can get 2 gig a Dropbox account of 2 gig for free, but if you want more than that, you can pay a premium price.
Is there any limit on this one right now?
No, at the moment there isn't. Not that well, there wasn't up until today, anyway.
Yes, exactly.
Don, you remember that Robo in the cloud you were talking about? There it is.
Yeah. I will show you how to use bandwidth.
It's a really neat service, and I say that the web interface very simple. Oh, you can also do things called raindrops. It's called the Cloud App. You can get raindrops, and raindrops are basically short plugins that allow you to send files directly from an application. So by default, there's a keystroke that will allow you to just highlight a file in the Finder, hit the keystroke, and that will upload it to Cloud App, and then paste the link into your buffer. But there's things for Aperture. I think there's an iPhoto one as well. So directly from these applications, if you want to share something, you can do it from within the application using a hotkey.
Fantastic.
It's a very nice application. I say it's free. No limits at the moment. They will probably introduce a premium service later on. But if you want to go on and give it a try, it's a really nice application.
Fantastic. I will definitely check it out. It's good enough. And I think I might kick the tires and test how much weight that.
Anybody who's watching or listening to this right now, try it before Alex gets on. He's gonna bring it down.
Let's see how before they change all the rules. I was the kid in the playground where they start adding rules to dodgeball or adding rules because I figured out some way to manipulate the rules that they had.
Like try to aim below the neck, Alex.
No, there's always. In many playground rules, there's oftentimes ways that if you stand in just a certain place, it's not necessarily fair, but it's not against the rules, and the key is knowing how to find those. So So anyway, here's my pick. Hold on, I'll play it for you. How's that?
What is that?
Hold on.
Awesome. I'll give you $50 for it right now.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me return to main menu. Hold on. Read it to me. Okay, hold on.
Sam, I am. That's Sam, I am. That's Sam, I am. I do not like that Sam, I am.
Dr. Seuss.
This is my favorite Dr. Seuss book, and I had to make it. It is. I love Green Eggs and Ham. So anyway, it is now available on my iPhone and on the iPad. And the way that they've been implementing, I don't know if I've picked any of these before. I can't remember whether I've done some of the older ones. I'm a big Dr. Seuss fan, and my son is a huge Dr. Seuss fan. And the way that they've implemented these is so great. So what they do is, and this is the way I think that this is one possible future. By the way, one of the things that I think is important about this is that the thing with a lot of these applications is this is taking the books to the next level. Where I think that Amazon's going to continue to sell books to are people who really like the book reading experience. They want to read the words. Mm-hmm. They want to do this stuff, and they don't need anything added to it. But what they're doing with the Dr. Seuss books, I think, is just fascinating, which is this idea where I can, go from page to page. It will read to me or to my son on his own, and you'll hear it. You'll hear my son open it up on the iPad, and you'll hear, "That's Sam, I am." That's and I know that he's listening to Dr. Seuss because he's watching Dr. Seuss, and he knows how to change the pages. And then when you click on stuff, let's see if I turn this on. See if I click on something here, I go
dish. Ham.
So there's a little bit of education there as far as Dr. Seuss takes you on education.
Yep.
And the thing is that there's lots of push-ins. So it's actually it shows you part of the page and you read that, and then it opens up and shows the rest of the page, and it's just really well made. And it's just a great solution and something that I think if you have kids, these are. This stuff is fantastic as far as bringing that nighttime. I mean, to me, I don't want to buy. My wife still buys books with paper. I think it's cute. I think it's cute. I go, oh, kawaii. So anyway, so the kawaii. So anyway, it's fine, but the idea of having all those books, especially when you're on the road, when you're in an airport with your kids, being able to have 10 books that do this kind of thing, that are this interactive, is really great. And Green Eggs and Ham, in my opinion, is the best kids book ever written.
I credit it with making me want to eat green eggs and ham. I don't know.
Yes.
They just make it look so good in that book.
Yes, exactly. By the end, I've broken down, okay, I'll have the green eggs and ham. So anyway, it is, definitely, all the Dr. Seuss ones are good, but this one specifically, Green Eggs and Ham, is my favorite, and I definitely would suggest checking it out. So that's my pick of the week. And, Don, where can people find you?
They can find me at screencastonline.com, and if I can just remind people about that 50% discount for a full membership for 3 months, plus access to the entire back catalogue of over 260 shows. Just use the coupon code MacBreak Weekly. Actually, some people did actually sign up during the live show and had a problem, but I actually fixed that while I was online, so it's all working perfect. So
we're good multitaskers.
I've actually replied to a few emails as well and blown people away from the looks of it. But anyway, that's all sorted. So yeah, MacBreak Weekly is the 50% discount code.
Great. And Andy, where can people find you?
Well, I've chosen a different business model than Don, in which I provide information that is of absolutely zero value, that will not help you, that will just waste your time, but I don't charge money for it. So I don't know which one's going to eke out. I got to admit that I really recommend people go to Don's site and not mine. But mine is the Celestial Waste of Bandwidth,
Reverse marketing.
Yes.
When my brother was running for he was running for his fraternity, he was so popular that he won by unanimous vote, including the guy that ran against him, who said, "I'm running just to make sure that Travis has to give a speech, but I'm voting for him too." That's what it sounds like.
I love that.
Frederick, where can people find you?
You can find me at screencastonline.com.
Yeah, exactly.
And there you'll find tutorials and all. I got to say before, I'm at Frederick Van on Twitter. But Don, I've been a fan of his stuff since the beginning of time. And
good stuff.
Don, you are all over my Apple TV. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think you're filling it up, actually.
Please continue. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, amazing tutorials over on Screencast Sun. So
and we also have This Week in Photo.
This Week in Photo is the podcast that I host at thisweekinphoto.com.
Yeah.
And you can follow This Week in Photo on Twitter at This Week in Photo. Yep. And I'm at Frederick.
And that's the site came out so well.
The site is
so proud.
We're very proud of it. So.
Yes.
It is our place to hang out online for photographers.
Yes, absolutely. All right, folks. Break time is over. Back to work.